This is 66% plausible. I am Atlas King.
Thank you. The second frame, Sean Murphy to break.
Whether you know them as pool, snooker, or billiards, cue sports have been with us for close to 6 centuries now. The first instance of a billiards-like game was in Northern Europe in the 15th century, and they've remained steadily popular ever since. As with every sport, other than rugby, which was spontaneously yet perfectly formed the first time a group of men threw an egg around a field while cuddling, there have been evolutions to the game as the years passed. Some of these have been huge changes, such as moving the sport onto a flat table rather than playing it on a curved pipe. Yet some of these changes have been so subtle, you would never even give them a second thought.
The whole sport was stuck in a sort of limbo for decades because players couldn't figure out how to conveniently transfer the balls from their storage space onto the table.
That's our producer, Jessica Willow.
If you look carefully at the work of Renaissance painter Sandro Botticelli, you'll find clues to the status of cue sports in the 15th century. It was a game that people liked but were unable to play. The spherical nature of the balls meant that they could roll away at the most inopportune time as you tried to transport them to the table, or in those days, the curved pipe.
We could dedicate a whole episode to the court of King James II's doomed experiments with cube-shaped balls, which he hoped would lower potential rollaways, but believe us, the less said about that, the better.
Now, take a closer look at Botticelli's celebrated Adoration of the Magi of 1475. While the foreground is predominantly preoccupied with the aforementioned adoration, the background reveals far more than it initially appears to. With the right mind at work, Botticelli's subversive symbolism can be decoded in a matter of seconds.
Instead of the boring, lifeless backgrounds we've gotten used to from the likes of Da Vinci and Michelangelo, Botticelli peppers us with a quite delightful piece of social satire.
That's Professor Grange Starling, head of research into the connection between Renaissance paintings and cue sports in 14th century Europe.
I'm Professor Grange Starling.
He's Professor Grange Starling.
Starling. It's quite easy to miss it at first. In fact, I missed it for some decades. But look closely at the top left of the painting and you can quite clearly see a man and woman trying to carry 5 striped balls, 8 solid balls, a black ball, and 3 dotted balls over to a curved pipe. The painting depicts them having just dropped the balls next to a sack of potatoes. They were extremely hard to transport, these balls, due to their spherical nature. It is perhaps the presence of the similarly spherical potatoes which give the image its almost subconscious quality. The frustration is there for all to see. The man screams in anger, while the woman looks quite weary from yet another failed attempt at a simple game of 17-ball pool.
We have a more limited array of games these days, as the sport has evolved so much.
That's cue sport expert and songwriter Jake Tully.
Jake Tully.
Hi, I'm Jake Tully.
He is Jake Tully.
I'm Jake Tully, and we have a more limited array of games these days as the sports have evolved so much. The only cue sports you're likely to come across today are billiards, snooker and pool. Pool, of course, with its variations including 8-ball, 9-ball, Q-on-Q, fixed cushion shooting, and Cheryl's Regret. These are well-defined games, but back then they didn't really have any rules nailed down. On the rare occasions that they actually got the balls in the curved pipe, they had no idea what to do with them.
Most people assumed that the pipe came first and cue sports began to use curved pipes as a playing surface, when in fact it was the other way around.
A plumber.
The first pipes were actually created specifically for cue sports. So we really have billiards, snooker, pool and by extension Stephen Hendry to thank for the miracle of modern plumbing.
That's modern plumber Clancy Jane.
And I'm Robert Halford.
John Manning. I'm this guy.
Thank you, Robert Major.
How do these people keep on...
Oh, I'm Jemima Lovely.
Stephen Smith.
And I'm Jake Tully.
Jake Tully.
I'm still he. The history books of cue sports history are littered with the histories of the ever-present historical struggle to get the balls on the table.
And as with everything else, it's in times of great struggle we tend to see great innovation.
And with great power comes great responsibility.
It's always in the last place you look.
It'd be a fine little country, if only you could put a roof on it.
Sure, a couch is as good as a bed if it's a stranger watching.
There's a good reason William Walt is known as the grandfather of billiard ball transportation devices.
Have you got the list of names? I can't find it.
William Walt's life obsession was getting his beloved snooker into the mainstream. He knew the only way this could happen was if he found a way to get those balls over to the table. For years he tried.
Cue container design is Ronson threshold.
Putting them on a flat slab of wood, but the balls would roll off so easily. It was as if nothing had improved. Lucky for him, his wife was a keen baker.
Baking is a method of cooking food that uses prolonged dry heat, normally in an oven, but also in hot ashes or on hot stones. The most common baked item is bread, but many other types of foods are baked.
That's our baking correspondent, Cliff.
William was fascinated with the containers his wife would use to bake small cakes in, and it dawned on him if the cakes were the same size as the balls, then the balls would easily sit in place. He got to work on a recipe for small ball-shaped cakes that would be baked in the same tray, around 20 at a time. Once the recipe was done, they'd have a reason to craft a tray that would bake cakes the same size as snooker balls, and could therefore be used to transport snooker balls, once the cakes were eaten.
Walt's wife tragically died before the batch of cakes were finished, but Walt had picked up enough baking knowledge from simply observing her, and he was probably as good, if not better, than she was at that stage anyway.
After eating the cakes at his wife's funeral's after-party, Walt tried out his new snooker ball tray.
Initially met with howls of derision. It took only 1 year for the trays to be commonly accepted as the most efficient way of getting those balls onto the table.
So next time you go for a game of pool, or snooker, or 9-ball, or potaholics, or shooting pockets, or chalks and cheeses, make sure to take an extra look at that all too often overlooked tray.
How can you tell a perfect design? It's simple. A perfect design is one that never has to be innovated upon. And that's what William Walt's design was. Perfect. It remains the exact same to this day. Not one difference between the one you used in the pool hall and the one he dedicated to his dead wife. Nothing needs to change. Nothing has changed. They stay the very same. Well, the materials they actually make them from change regularly, and they do have those little squares cut into them for handy chalk storage, but that's not really, I'm not talking about that kind of change. This is 66% plausible. I'm Atlas King.
Snooker, loopy, nuts are we, me and him and them and me. We'll show you what we can do with a load of balls and a snooker cue. Pop the wrist in, screw back for the yellow green.